Hello and welcome back to this episode of Kaleidoscope, the podcast. My guest today is Hayley Millar. Hayley and I met outdoor swimming while swimming down in the loch when we were still able to. And I see now, unfortunately, we have green algae and have had for a couple of years, and we can't get in the loch. And I see now it's made its way out to sea, which is so unfortunate in some of the places they're not recommending. However, I think you still go swimming in other lovely places that
I
are
do. I take my opportunities where I can.
absolutely where it's algae free. Brilliant. So, Hilly, I'm going to ask the four questions that I ask all my guests, and then I'm going to pass it over to you. And as always, I don't even know, I have no idea which story you're going to tell us. So the four questions are: what was life like before the change? What was life like during the change? What was life like after the change? And what does the future hold? Not that any of us have a crystal ball, but as far as you could tell, or your big audacious dreams. So I'll pass it over to you, Haley. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me, Valerie. So I want to preface my story by saying that for those who don't know me, I get excited about things, like really, really excited and enthusiastic and hyped up. So if I'm having a good time, I will exclaim in the moment about how much fun I'm having or how happy I am, how wonderful this is. And my friends joke about it and they embrace it as part of who I am. But from others, sometimes I see the odd eye roll or I overhear a less accepting remark, and sometimes I feel as if I'm maybe a bit too much, and I feel kind of embarrassed and ashamed about it. And I want to tell them, I'm not trying to draw attention to myself. I'm not trying to make it all about me. It's just that for a very, very long time, I was incapable of feeling happiness or excitement or enthusiasm. And now that I can, it's just so powerful and it fills me with joy. And I can't contain it. It bubbles up and it spills out of me. And it probably does make me a bit annoying to be around at times, to be perfectly honest. But I just want to tell the story of a very different me so that um, it might clarify things, and people who know me now wouldn't recognize that version of me because it's been a big transformation. So I have struggled with depression on and off for most of my adult life, and nothing caused it. I had a wonderful childhood. I had great parents. I had a loving family. I had good friends. I did well at school. I got a good education. I wasn't abused or neglected or traumatized. And I mention this because so often people will say to a depressed person, "But what have you got to be depressed about? Your life is great." And mine was. Depression's an illness. It is a chemical imbalance in the brain. And yes, it can be caused by life events and circumstances, but it can also happen for purely biological reasons. It's like in terms of physical health, somebody could be a super healthy person who eats well and exercises and does all the right things to take good care of themselves, but they might still develop a physical illness through no fault of their own. And mental health and mental ill health is no different. So I think it was my own lack of understanding or awareness of this that led to me struggling with a mental health issue for many years without realizing my life was great. I couldn't possibly be depressed. So I thought I was just lazy, I was awkward, I was unlikable, I was boring, I was not good enough. I was the problem, not my mental health. So I developed this pattern of running away from my unhappiness as if I could escape it or as if it was my circumstances that were causing my unhappiness. And in a way, it served me quite well because I actually ended up traveling and living and working abroad for nearly a decade, which I probably wouldn't have done if I'd just been content and happy at home where I found myself. It definitely gave me a push. And don't get me wrong, I had some fantastic experiences in between the depressive episodes. It wasn't a constant level of depression. There were very much ups and downs, but I had some really awful times as well. And gradually, the awful times became longer and the good times became shorter. I used food as my number one crutch, and at times alcohol too. Food numbed the emotional pain that I felt almost constantly, and alcohol temporarily silenced the mental turmoil, if you like. But they both made things worse. They both made me feel worse about myself too. And then the worse I felt, the more I self medicated with food, with drink, with cigarettes, with whatever I could that would give me that temporary feeling of numbness and blocking it out. And you hear people described as functioning alcoholics. I don't believe I was ever an alcoholic, but I would describe myself then as a functioning depressive. I was doing what I had to do to get by and to continue to stay alive, but I was existing rather than living. I wasn't experiencing any of life's joys. And just to illustrate that, I remember ending up in Prague, this famously beautiful, historic city. I was working at a school, and my colleagues, they were living the dream. They couldn't believe their luck at landing a job in this amazing place. They went out and explored, they made friends, they had the time of their lives, they were absolutely in awe of their surroundings. And meanwhile, there I was wondering what on earth was wrong with me, that I hated the place. I hated it. All I could see was grey. It looked drab and dreary and miserable, and that was how I felt. And I was clearly seeing it through that lens. And I didn't have the energy to go out and explore or to meet people. I just dragged myself to work and back again, and then I got back into bed, and that was my life. And I felt like a complete failure because my experience of this was just so different from everyone else's, and I couldn't describe it to anybody, friends back home, because they were likely to say, but look at where you are, it's amazing, why are you not happy? It was so difficult for me to understand. So I thought, okay, maybe it was the job, maybe it's the school, maybe the city itself just wasn't right for me. So I packed up and moved yet again, this pattern of chasing this elusive happiness that I could never quite hold on to. And this time, the final time as it turned out, I went to Istanbul, and I ended up living on the very outskirts of the city, and everything about the place just stressed me out. It was overcrowded, it was loud, it was chaotic. Everything I tried to do just felt so difficult. Um, and once again, I was completely alone in this experience because I had friends living there who absolutely loved the place. And I'm certain if I went back now, I would see it the way they did. And when I was taking mental health awareness sessions in the years when I returned to Northern Ireland, I described depression as it's like a dark veil, and it hangs between you and your surroundings. And you can see everything, but it's really dark and hazy and blurry, and you're stuck and you can't reach through this veil, and you can't get through to the joy and the fun and the happiness that everybody around you seems to be experiencing. And they all do. You don't see anyone else's problems, you just see the happiness that they seem to be experiencing that you're missing out on. So it was in Turkey that I hit my first rock bottom. It wasn't the only one, but it was the first one and probably the lowest one. I hated every single thing about my life and about myself. I just about managed to force myself to walk to work, and to get through a day of teaching in a school that I hated, with colleagues I didn't like, with children I couldn't bear being around. And then on the way home every day, I picked up a packet of cigarettes, two Burger King meals, multi pack of crisps, sometimes wine or vodka too. And I got into bed with all that the second I got home, and I didn't get out until I had to go to work the next morning. And even then, I couldn't see that I was unwell. I thought I was just a failure. I was broken somehow. I couldn't even see how far removed this was from my old life, which was full of family and friends and travel and experiences and music and fun. And every morning, I remember crying because I had woken up, and that meant I had to do it all again. Um, I actually remember one weekend I lay there with, it's actually incomprehensible now. I lay there with no food or drink in the apartment all weekend, trying to make myself get up and go down to the shop, which was literally beside my apartment building, because I was thirsty and I wanted to buy some drinking water. And I couldn't do it. I actually contemplated drinking the juice from a pickle jar just to get something to drink so that I didn't have to get up and go outside and speak to anyone, because it felt like such a monumental effort. And that is what being depressed can feel like. And it frustrates me to hear it dismissed as somebody feeling a bit sad, a bit down in the dumps. I've heard people have come up to me and opened up and shared after workshops that I delivered and said, I tried telling someone close to me that I felt depressed, and I said, oh yeah, I felt a wee bit sad for a week or two as well. You'll get over it. Go outside and take a walk, that kind of thing. So it's a very real illness, and not knowing about it is, I believe, what nearly killed me. And the person who saved my life was a colleague. I barely knew her. All I know now is that her name was Claire, and she's from Bolton. That's all I know about her. And she approached me several times in the staff room and asked me if I was okay. And I said I was fine. I smiled brightly. I put on the mask. She asked me a few times to go for coffee with her, and I refused. I panicked. Like, the thought of sitting down and having to interact with somebody instead of numbing myself with my junk food and my cigarettes was just terrifying. But she insisted. Bless her. And I willed her to take the hint and go away. I was furious with her for being this inconvenience in my life, stopping me from going back to my little hidey hole. I made excuse after excuse, and she just met all of them with this cheery smile, and she refused to see that I didn't want to go with her. And she herded me towards a cafe, and she put a coffee in my hand, and I was so angry. I thought she was the most insensitive and socially unaware person I'd ever met. But she was so friendly and so kind. I couldn't do anything. And it turned out she had lost someone close to her because of depression, and she saw all the signs in me. So she talked and I listened, and she was really gentle, and eventually she got me to admit that maybe I wasn't exactly all that okay after all, to be honest. And I didn't go into any details, but I remember she reached across the table and she squeezed my hand and she said, depression is an illness. It's not something that you have to try and shake off. Can I help you to get help? And it still brings tears to my eyes thinking about that moment. And it was a long time ago, because it was the first time I heard somebody put a name to what I was experiencing, that made me think that this isn't just me. This is a condition. And I went home and I Googled depression, and I saw myself in every description. Every list of symptoms was just tick, tick, tick. It was me. It was what was wrong with me. And the relief, Valerie, was just indescribable. Realizing that I wasn't well, I was sick. I wasn't a failure. I wasn't abnormal. I was ill. And if you're ill, you can get help. And that was the very night that I booked a flight home. I packed my bags. I wrote a letter of resignation, and I emailed my mum to tell her I was coming home. And almost as soon as the plane landed, I went to my doctor, and I was immediately prescribed medication and referred to the mental health clinic. And with time, and with the love and support of my family, and a lot of work, I started to feel alive again. Now, the transformation was not by any means overnight, nor was it just an instant click and turn around, and life has been amazing ever since. I talked about having more than one rock bottom. There have been ups and downs, and I did make the mistake of thinking that medication would cure me, and it didn't. But it was part of the transformation. It made the transformation possible, I suppose, because it boosted the hormones that my brain was missing, and it lifted that dark veil so that I could finally connect with the world around me again. But I still had to work at it. It was a huge learning curve for someone who knew nothing about mental ill health. And I continued to have periods of severe depression, but each time I learned a bit more about the illness, about myself, what it looked like for me, and about my responses to it. It took me, for example, a surprising amount of time to work out that alcohol made it so very much more more painful and so much worse when I was struggling. Um, and that's a flaw in society, because society has us conditioned to believe that, if you're having a bad day, the normal thing to do is go home and have a wee glass of wine and you'll feel better. And I've had to completely turn that around and retrain myself out of that automatic response to stress or sadness, because after the initial comfort of, well, it was usually eating for me, but drinking too, I feel so much worse. And what does make me feel better is going for a walk, doing some exercise, talking to somebody, um, getting out of bed. Just, it can be something quite simple. It's more difficult to do in the moment, but it's much more effective as a mood stabilizer. So what really became my foundation was something that I know you're aware of, but I'm really passionate about it. I spent several years teaching young people about it. Is the 5 ways to well-being. And when you're depressed, I always like to say this first and foremost. When you're depressed, it's really hard to do. It's really hard to say, well, these are 5 things that I can do to look after my mental health. When some days I couldn't get out of bed, I couldn't brush my teeth, I couldn't wash my hair. So the 5 ways to well-being they're more about maintenance. They're like your five fruit and veg a day for your physical health. These are your five fruit and veg a day for your mental health. But it doesn't eradicate the need for professional help. It was the medication and the professional help that got me to the stage where I could then implement this toolkit for survival, and now I've got it. So I just wanted to speak very briefly about each one of the 5 ways to well-being. So for anyone who's not aware of them, they are: learn, give, be active, take notice, and connect. So starting with learn. Learn is about engaging your brain, giving it a quick workout. And for me, I might do a puzzle, I might play a quiz game. I like learning languages, so I'll use a language learning app and do a quick exercise on that. But anything that makes me think and challenges my brain. And I used to compare it to with my young people in the mental health sessions to someone having muscles, biceps, and going to the gym and working out, and those muscles will get stronger and stronger, and you'll be able to lift more, you'll be able to do more with them. And it's kind of like that with the brain. If you don't use it, it gets slow, it gets muddled, it gets confused, it gets lazy, it gets tired. But use it, exercise it, train it, and you can train your brain. And that's been an important thing for me, just to keep my brain busy on a daily basis. The second one is give. And it's so easy. It just means doing something for somebody or something else. Because when you do that, when you make yourself useful, you feel like you do make a difference. You realize that you have worth, that there is a point to you being here, that you can contribute to society, to the people around you. And it can be really simple. I got really into feeding the birds in the garden at one point, and that was giving for me. And I got so much joy out of watching the birds relying on me and coming to me to be fed. But I look for opportunities just to lift other people up and show some small kindness with a gift or a gesture or an offer of help or support. Even just hold the door open for someone. Um, just do one little thing just to make somebody else's life a bit easier in the moment. Be active. Be active. It speaks for itself. Now, it doesn't have to be a full body workout at the gym. Go for a stroll, get up and stretch now and again, dance to your favorite song whenever you're in the kitchen cooking dinner. Exercise releases dopamine. Dopamine makes you feel happy, and all movement is good for your physical health, which is very much linked to your mental health. And you just do what you can, and you find ways to move that you enjoy. And I have now found that if I'm having a difficult time, if I'm feeling stressed or I'm sad or I'm anxious about something, the best way for me to deal with it is to move. And I've now made that my automatic response rather than coming home and opening a bottle of wine or a bag of crisps or a bar of chocolate. My automatic response is I'll go for a wee walk first. Even 5, 10 minutes out in fresh air, breathing, listening to the sounds of nature around me, moving my body makes me feel better than any of those things did. It's like the junk food or whatever your self medication is, it gives instant relief, but it's short lived. And the exercise gives a longer lasting relief, but it takes more time and effort to do. So it's always going to be a choice. And it's a choice that I have just practiced and practiced and practiced making. I'm not saying I'm always 100% successful, but the majority of the time I am. Excuse me. Um, right, where was I? 1, 2, 3. Take notice. Take notice just means being in the moment. So switching off the phone, looking at your surroundings when you're out for that walk, listening to relaxing music, drawing, painting, singing, playing an instrument. I have experimented with all these things and continue to do so. But just pausing and letting yourself be for a few minutes in the middle of chaos. Sometimes we get so caught up in what's going on in our lives and in looking after other people and in work that we forget to just take a minute or two to switch it all off and just be in the moment. And the final one was the most difficult one for me, connect, because I am, believe it or not, an introvert. Some people would argue with me, but I insist that it's true. I am an introvert. And even after socializing with people I love and doing activities that bring me great joy, um, when I reach my limit, I just need to get away from everybody and just be quiet on my own to recharge. I get quite overwhelmed if I don't take regular breaks on my own. I often even make excuses about needing the toilet or having to make a phone call just so I can escape just for a minute or two and be silent and recharge my social battery. But I find that works for me now, and I get a huge amount of pleasure from spending time with people through my many hobbies. It's very good for me. Human beings are social animals. That's what we are. We need to be in communities. We need to be in relationships. And I just became so isolated through depression that I thought I was incapable of being around people. Um, unless I was alone, my stress levels just went through the roof. And now I realize I need to connect. Every day I need to have some kind of meaningful connection, like a conversation, a shared memory, a laugh, a hug. And I hate small talk. I've just never been very good at it. So now I'm always seeking out ways to be with people in a more active way where we can really connect, but through shared interests and activities. And I've met so many wonderful people that way, including you. Um, and it's other people that make life special. And they are what was completely absent during my darkest times because I cut myself off completely when it was most important for me to be reaching out. And now I'm not on antidepressants anymore, and haven't been for a few years now, because I've learned to live with depression. And I know I'm not cured. I know that when I have bad times, there is that tendency to spiral. But I also know my 5 ways to well-being. And as simple as it sounds, it's my toolkit for managing my mental health. If I can keep doing those 5 small things every single day, I can keep my head above water. And I don't manage it perfectly. And I have the ups and downs, but they're more like other people's ups and downs now. Um, I definitely don't go to sleep hoping that I won't wake up again. I've got far too much I want to do. I've got far too many things that I enjoy. And that's my secret, to fill my life with things that bring me joy. I promised myself that I would never again sit on the sofa scrolling through social media. and seeing someone else's photos of amazing experiences that they'd had and going, I'd love to do that. I wish I could have done that. If I see that and I want to do it, I will find a way to make it happen and I will try it. I've promised myself that that's the way it's going to be. If I have the thought I want to do something, I'm going to do it now. No more looking on at life through a veil. The veil's not there anymore. I'm free to go and participate fully in my own life. So, yes, the transformation was long, and it wasn't a straight road by any means. And the post transformation isn't perfect by any means, but I am generally a much happier person than I was back then and a lot more balanced. I take better care of myself. I try to make healthy choices where I can. I make an effort not to isolate myself for long periods of time, but also not to surround myself with especially negative or unkind people. It's important that the people you're connecting with are the right people as well. And I love my life. Does that mean I'm happy all the time? No, of course not. I don't think anybody ever is. Real life isn't like that. But I'm happy and I have coping strategies for when I'm not. Um, and I think I will probably always be fighting the old impulses and emotions. I don't always cope in an ideal way, but I have certainly learned a lot from the process. And so when I am happy and excited to bring it back to where I started, I just can't help shouting it from the rooftops because it just feels so incredible after all that time of feeling dead inside and not being able to feel very much at all. That now I can feel this joy and happiness, all the stuff that I just could see through the veil before, I can now experience what it is really like. Um, the future, that's the one I find difficult because, well, we never know what's going to happen. Um, I'm now in a career that I love, and I am teaching young people with additional needs in college. Um, and I try to bring what I've learned into my job and to equip them as best I can. And I try to be open about my own experiences in the hope that they can help someone else. I see myself continuing to do that job. And I suppose I see myself just continuing along the journey as I'm doing it, enjoying life, getting as much out of it as I can, and practicing those 5 ways to well-being, and just waiting to see what happens, really. And that's where we are.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you for being so open and vulnerable. I know because you've done this work, you know that vulnerability is actually a strength, not a weakness. Um, and when we are able to embrace our vulnerability and allow other people in, we can help. Even if you weren't teaching Take Five, just by telling your story helps people. And that's for me, this is what the podcast is all about, is because I remember, and I don't know whether it happened to you when you finally got to the stage where somebody reached out and made you realize that you were ill, and that it was okay to be ill. But certainly I remember being in bed and Googling, will I ever be happy again? And for me, that's one of the reasons why I do this podcast, is that if people are in that, they can find these stories, and there's all sorts of stories from different people about what they did. Some were medicated, some weren't, some found exercise, some found, and it's just, I think you have to find the thing and not everything works for everybody. And you've got to find the thing that works for you. I made a couple of notes when you were talking, the Take Five ambassadors. When I did the Take Five ambassadors training, we were taught the acronym CLING, so that we could remember, because how you remembered it there, I was going, oh, and I don't even know what you
Okay.
said. So it was connect, learn, active, notice, give.
There we go.
So that,
That
and
would be
I
much
like,
easier.
and I go, oh, look at her. But then, probably because you're a teacher, you're used to Word for
Do you know
me.
what it is? Is that's the order that my slides were in my presentation, and that's just the order I've always remembered them in. Then I can actually visualize the little slides that I had. That's
I thought it
yours
was
is
because
much better.
connect is the worst one, so we'll put it at the end.
Yes.
The one I find the hardest, so we'll put it last. Um, one of the things you didn't mention, you mentioned your music, and you mentioned, and we mentioned right at the start, the swimming and stuff.
Mhm.
Your poetry. Was your poetry of great help to you during any of your recovery?
Honestly, no, because what I found was when I was unwell, it put a block on all my creativity. And I found it very hard to even string a sentence together, to have a coherent conversation, because my thoughts were just so muddled and jumbled. Um, but having said that, in the years that came afterwards, and I suppose, yes, that is during the recovery time, just not in the immediate
Yep.
stages,
Yep.
as more as a reflective thing, and definitely as a way of sharing my experiences with others. I've found people have connected quite strongly with some of the things that I've written, whether poetry or short stories.
Yeah.
That it helps other people. So yes, it helps me. I mean, I'm quite verbose anyway, but it helps me to get things down there and to be able to be creative. Has always been important to me. It's something that I wasn't able to do in the throes of depression.
Yeah.
Um, but I can see how it helps to connect with other people as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I just for some people, that's when they're at not their most creative, but as a way of getting it out of here
Mhm.
and into
Mhm.
that's when they're most prolific is probably
Mhm.
more the word I'm thinking of. Even for some artists, as
Mhm.
artists as in the physical painting, as opposed to I see poetry as an art form as well. And even people who write songs and things, some of them, some of our best songs have come out of
Mhm.
really, really dark places.
Mhm.
Um, because I do. I love your poetry. Your poetry is
Thank
fabulous.
you.
Um, do you have a collection of poetry somewhere that people can?
I am currently building one. I'm gathering together all the bits that I've written. I recently did a wee short creative writing course and got a lot of encouragement about my poetry and was quite inspired to write a lot of new stuff. So I've finally taken the plunge and I'm starting to gather things together. So I hope to have a collection of poetry
Hey,
published within the next year or so.
brilliant.
Self-published, I do add.
Yes, right there with you, sister. Well, once this is up, I can always go on and edit it. So when you have it somewhere, you can send me the link and I'll put it into the
Oh,
bio
lovely.
descriptor as a
Thank you.
um. So and the other note I made was, I wonder, are you an extroverted introvert? One of those lovely people that's not actually either, but is a lovely mix of both.
Wonder, yeah, I mean, there a lot of people in my life would argue that there's no way I'm an introvert because they see what I'm like when I'm, and it's so different. I actually have a colleague who she can't understand the me that I describe of, for example, I really, really struggle with going into a small group of people that I don't know or one individual that I don't know when there's no set purpose for the discussion and having to make that small talk and I don't know the right things to ask. I don't know what to say. And the whole time I'm just thinking in my head, what can I say? What can I say? What can I say? And then I'm panicking and nothing comes out. And I come away feeling, oh, they must think I'm so stupid, or they must think I'm so boring, or, they must think I'm so standoffish or rude. And I hate it. And yet I can stand up in front of a hall full of 500 people and deliver a presentation without batting an eyelid. And I'll
Yeah,
be the life and soul and I'll be entertaining because I've got a script. That's how I
yeah,
describe it to this colleague. She says, I don't understand how you could, why is this a problem for you? You're so chatty. But it's almost like performance mode. And as long as I've got that role to play, I'm a good teacher because I'm standing up in front of a room and I know what my job is and I'm good at it. And you do have a script. You've got something you need to teach. There's something you need to say.
yeah.
If I'm giving a presentation, the same, doing this, it's the same thing. Now, if you hadn't said, you've got to come on and talk about a transformation, and we'd just been having a wee chat, it would have
Oh
lasted about
yeah, totally
2 minutes.
different. Stilted, yeah,
I
stilted,
couldn't do
and me trying to draw things out.
Yes,
Yeah.
couldn't do it.
And the thing you said there was about performance, and when we're performing, it is exhausting. It is
Yes.
exhausting, which is why your social battery runs out in a way that somebody who is just an extrovert or is a people person or whatever you want to call it, their social battery never seems to run out.
Mhm.
Whereas if it is something that you have trained yourself to do, to put on the performance,
Mhm.
then it becomes completely exhausting. And that's one of the difficulties for lovely people like yourselves, is when you don't recognize that and you don't give yourself the chance to go away and to recharge. And I
Mhm.
loved when you said, I would go to the toilet or I would go and take a phone call. That's what I used to do, was go to the toilet and I'd feel the wallpaper, and then I'd go in and I'd
Mhm.
feel the cistern, and to just ground myself back in this moment before the panic overtook me, feeling all the different textures, to just come right back in the body. I'm like, quick phone call, going to the toilet. I used to do that all the time too.
Yeah.
Um,
One thing actually, and it's becoming an issue at the moment, um, in general in work culture, and I think particularly for teachers like myself, it's almost in that taking an actual lunch break is a bit of a no-no. It's a bit of a failure, because there's so much to do, and I can't believe you've got time to take a lunch break. And I see it as I wouldn't be able to do my job if I didn't
if you
take
didn't,
the lunch break.
absolutely.
And now we're in our new building, but there's no little places I can go to be on my own at lunchtime, at least not while eating. And I would always have taken myself off to the quietest room, the quietest corner, and I'd read my book and eat my lunch. And it might only take me 15 minutes. And then I'd go and join my colleagues and have a chat and talk. I just need that little bit of time. Whereas the majority of teachers and colleagues that I know will sit at their desks and eat, and now they'll all be going together to the canteen. And I almost feel like I'm a bit of an oddball, or maybe I'll cause them offence by refusing to go with them to the canteen. But the thing is, I know if I do that, it's a meeting, it's work, because we're going
Yes.
to be sitting talking about
Yep.
problems and students and lesson plans and all the rest of it. But I just feel like it is really important when you're working to just have that little bit of time just to recharge. But maybe not everybody needs it to the extent that an introvert does.
No, but I think everybody does need it.
Mhm.
Like you say, maybe not to the same extent, but everybody does need it. And that culture of not having a lunch break or not having coffee breaks or not having is really dangerous. That's how you up your numbers of burnout,
Yep,
because people are
absolutely.
not getting the break. Legally, the breaks are there for a reason, so
Hmm.
that people don't experience burnout. And
Yeah.
and and oh, anyway, you and I could talk about that for hours. Um, Thank you so much for sharing your story. I have three final little questions that I ask, and you can answer one, two, or three, whichever. It's entirely up to you. And the three questions are favorite phrase, favorite book, and or what you would tell your younger self.
I would say one of my favorite phrases is famously attributed to Plato, I believe, and it's be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. And I think that is probably one of the reasons I'm going to be removing myself from social media at some time in the future, because I get really upset at the attitudes and the comments that you see on social media of pure hatred or insensitivity. And I don't know why people do it, or feel a need to hurl around insults to complete strangers, um, when you know nothing about what that person has been experiencing or what they're dealing with. Um, and a reminder as well that on social media, we only usually see the positives. We only usually see somebody's best moments. It's like a highlights montage. And for all you know, that could be them desperately grasping at, okay, here are reasons that it's worthwhile for me to stay alive. But they're desperately clutching at things that are good about their lives. So for someone to go on and comment negatively on that, or to insult somebody's appearance, or to call them stupid, or whatever, is just, it could be so damaging, it could be so harmful. So yeah, be kind, for everyone is fighting a hard battle. Favorite phrase.
Very good. I love that one myself. Didn't know it was Plato, and I haven't heard it like that. But more recently in times, from after the Caroline Fleck,
Yep.
I think she said, was it the day before she took her own life, she put out, be kind. Now that was maybe all she said was be kind, but the one I would know was be kind, because you don't know what people are struggling with.
Yeah.
And it is that you genuinely don't. For anybody that has experienced it, you may have experienced grief and you're in the shop getting a pint of milk to take back to the house for the people that are coming to visit just the days after. And you might look completely put together. You're dressed and your hair's brushed and everything else to be in the shop, but that's about it. You're
Yep.
hanging by a thread.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody else can see that. And that's for everybody. So always, for me, be kind. Absolutely. Because
Mm-hmm.
you no idea what anybody else is going through.
Mm-hmm.
And you can be sure everybody's going through something. Very,
Yep.
very rare that you would meet somebody whose life is perfect. And we do meet them for a moment, but you're a bit like me. If you find somebody whose life is perfect in that moment, you absolutely celebrate it, because
Yeah.
it's so rare. Let's go for it. So yes, I love that. I must look up the Plato, the proper
Yeah.
be kind quote. That's fantastic. Thank you very
Mm-hmm.
much. Um, and as far as social media is concerned, I am very selective about who I follow and
Mm-hmm.
what I watch. And if there's anything at all, I don't watch the news, and it's rare. So somebody will come, Stephen will come in and he'll go, I was talking to so and so today, and I'll be going, oh, what's he got to do? And well, he's the new leader of the party. And I'll be going, he is? When did that happen? Just about 6 months ago, Valerie. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, because if it doesn't directly impact, and if it does directly impact me, somebody will tell me eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody will tell me
See,
I'm not to
I'm
be out of the house without my mask or something.
yeah, I'm like you in that respect, and I don't follow very much news and so on, and or I'm selective about it. But I can't I can't stay away from things that I feel really strongly about. So when then I read a story that's been posted on Facebook about something I do feel passionately about, and then I go on and read the comments, and that's when I just
See, that's where you go on and you put your comment
I can't stop myself jumping to people's
to
defense.
read. Yeah, but don't go and
Um,
read the rest of them. You don't have to.
oh,
And what I find actually with some of that, in some of it, because I was a good relations officer before
mhm,
I had my breakdown and retrained to do all this stuff. What I'd have done instead of commenting on the post was I'd have put a comment of support on my Facebook page,
mhm,
so that I wasn't getting involved in the melee.
yeah,
And I would have done at times. I would have been, and your conversation would go on with this one person. And it's like you never. I learned through all that you're never going to change their mind.
no, no, you're not.
So that's why I had to put the comment on my page rather than getting into, because you're not, no matter how, very rare, very rare. I think the people whose minds you change are people who are looking at the world and are open to having and to exploring, to having their mind changed and to exploring different belief systems and different ways of looking at things, and so on and so forth. I don't think anybody who's really, this is the way it is,
Yeah,
you're never gonna change your mind. So
no.
yeah, I'm like you, I tend not to.
Yeah.
And again, I would be very selective about, there's several social medias I'm really not on, and I don't see myself having a presence there, and but anyway, I'm one of those old dolls, loves Facebook.
I'm the same. No, I'm the same. That's 99% of my time is there.
I
Social
think
media
there's a
time.
certain age bracket, and I'm
I
now in
know.
that age bracket of Facebook.
No, and it has positives. I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
when I was traveling, Facebook opened up the world to me, because you land in a new city and you can meet groups of people, and you can find people that share your interests, and you can find activities that are going
Yeah,
on. And
yeah,
there are really positive, and also not only that, it helped me to keep my friends and family at home posted about what I was doing, and they could at the same time feel like I wasn't so, I wasn't on the other side of the world really. So there are lots of positives to it. I just think that, well, it's like anything. There's, the wrong people can have a detrimental effect.
absolutely. But for me, it's about not standing guard at the corners of your mind,
Hmm.
not letting
Yeah,
those people in.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Hilly, thank you so much for your time and for your vulnerability and for telling us your story. I'm sure somebody will get something from that helps them on
I
their
hope so.
journey.
I
I
hope so.
really, really appreciate you spending this time with us. Thank you so
You're
much,
very
Hilly.
welcome. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you.